everyone, and welcome back to The Victim's Voice. I'm your host, Lorelai. In today's episode, we're going to continue with the case of Lori Page. I thought I'd be able to tell Lori's story in just two parts, but after going over everything, it's going to have to be three parts. Lori deserves her story to be told in its entirety. In the last episode, we left off with Lori's case going quiet for months. That is, until the spring of 2024. At this point, the detectives were side eyeing Andrew, and they were almost positive that he was involved in whatever had happened to Lori. After talking to some people who were close to him, they found out that his relationship with Simone was strained and that he was having difficulty parenting Lori. According to his brother Antoine, Andrew was not mature enough to parent Lori and relied on her maternal grandmother Brooklyn for her help. She bought Lori's clothes, school supplies, and anything she needed that Andrew failed to get for her. Andrew Wiley was not fit to care for his daughter. In fact, in mid 2023, just a few months before Lori disappeared, Andrew expressed wanting to return Lori to her mother, but it was Antoine who talked him into keeping her in Tallahassee. And I'm sorry, but return her to her mother? Talked him into keeping her? We're not talking about a fucking dog here. What the fuck is wrong with this guy? How could he have no love or empathy for his own daughter? He knew how Lori's mother treated her, and by his own words, he said that Lori didn't want anything to do with Miranda. So why would he want to send Lori somewhere that she didn't want to be and wasn't cared for? Why didn't he just grow up and be a dad? The fact is, neither one of Lori's parents deserved this little girl, and she definitely deserved better parents than what she had. As they started looking into Andrew's communications and movements around the time Lori went missing, detectives pulled his phone records and found that he had called Priceline and then made a trip to JAX in Jacksonville, Florida, the day before Lori was reported missing. He also left his phone at home during the time he was supposed to be at work. And also, he called off of work on the 27th and the 29th. And to top it all off, 5 months after Lori disappeared, Andrew moved from Florida to Thomasville, Georgia. And not only did he move, but he also changed his phone number. His daughter was missing, and now if she came back home or tried to call her dad for help, she had no way to contact him. Most people with a missing child will never move or change their phone number for the simple fact that said child may one day come home or reach out to them. But not Andrew. He moved on with his life as fast as he could. On February 19th of 2024, Detective Megna contacted Andrew and asked him to come in for an interview. They didn't tell him what the interview was going to be about, other than the fact that it had to do with Lori's case. Andrew agreed to come in the next day, February 20th at 9 a.m. That morning, the detectives were ready and waiting, but Andrew didn't show up. They tried to call him and text him, but were getting no answer. So they called Brooklyn. She said that she had seen Andrew that morning. He had first called and told her that he had come into town to talk to a lawyer at 10 a.m., but had gotten there earlier so he could look for Lori. But he didn't say where he was looking at. But Andrew had already agreed to meet detectives at 9 a.m., so he intentionally was misleading them. The detectives finally heard from Andrew later that morning, who said that he still planned to come in for the interview, but he would have legal representation with him. He told them that he and his attorney would be there at 2:30. And at 2:30, him and his attorney showed up. Detectives first talked to Andrew about Lori's demeanor. Andrew told them once again how Lori was happy staying with him, and how she didn't want to go live with her mom or have anything to do with her at all for that matter. He said that Miranda's lack of interest in Lori caused her to be emotionally unstable and fall into a depression whenever Miranda would make contact. Andrew was then asked how he disciplined Lori. He told detectives that he had once whooped her with a belt, and another time he had to restrain her when she tried to run away. I would like to know why she was trying to run away and why she did run away 3 weeks before she disappeared, if she loved living with Andrew so much. Andrew said that both he and Lori sustained injuries during the time he had to chase her and restrain her when she ran away from the apartment while being disciplined. That poor baby, she went through absolute hell living with both of these idiots who call themselves parents. And what were the horrible, outrageous things that Lori was doing to deserve these punishments, you may ask? Well, according to Andrew, Lori would take a little too long getting home from school. Sometimes she would linger in the complex parking lot talking to other kids her age. What a horrible child, wanting to hang out with her friends. How dare she? Maybe she was prolonging going home because she hated it there and it was a living hell for her. Have you ever thought about that, Andrew? Oh, and because Andrew wanted detectives to think he was an attentive father, he said that Lori was not putting forth enough effort in school anymore. She was only putting enough effort in to pass, and that was it. Andrew said he had taken away her cell phone that he got her because of her failing grades. But then he went on to say he took away all of her electronics because he caught her looking at anime porn, which is what other members of the family, including Antoine, had said also. But did they really see her doing it, or is that something Andrew told them? And like I said in the first episode, if Lori was doing this, then it could be a sign that she was being sexually abused. When Andrew was asked by detectives about Lori's friends, he had no clue who they were at all, or if she even had any. That's how close he paid attention to her life. He tried to play it off by saying that Lori didn't really seem to have an interest in making friends. But that doesn't seem to be true, because when she would talk to kids instead of coming home right away from the bus stop, she would get beat. So it seemed like maybe it was Andrew who didn't want Lori to have friends. Maybe because he was afraid Lori might confide in them about what was going on at home. When Andrew was asked about the week leading up to Lori's disappearance, he seemed to get a sudden case of amnesia. He was unable to remember specific details leading up to the day he reported her missing on June 3rd of 2023. He was asked about calling into work, but once again he said he couldn't remember. He didn't know if he was sick or why he would have called in. He was then asked why he traveled to Jacksonville, Florida on June 2nd, 2023, the day before he reported Lori missing. This is when he took the trip to JAX. He also didn't remember this event. Did Andrew get knocked in the head because if my child was missing, I would remember everything I did in the days leading up to the disappearance, the day of, and the days after? I would remember what I ate for breakfast, and I would surely remember taking a 2.5 hour trip to an airport the day before her disappearance. But this man claims to remember nothing. But then, all of a sudden, Andrew seemed to get his memory back. He told detectives that a friend of his named Tim Brown asked for a ride to the Jacksonville airport. He said he asked Lori to go with him, but she refused. He said he drove Tim there and got back home right before he had to go to work that night. But who was Tim Brown? The detectives asked Andrew for contact information for him so that they could verify the story. Yet conveniently, Andrew didn't have his phone number or his address. All he could tell them was that Tim was a former college friend, and then he gave them a physical description. They asked Andrew how he and Tim had made the arrangements for the trip to Jacksonville, whether it was by cell phone or in person, but Andrew seemed confused by this question, which I don't think he was confused. I just think he didn't want to answer. Andrew never did give detectives contact information for Tim, and they never could confirm that he was an actual person. Detectives then changed the subject, asking Andrew if there were any other devices in his home that Lori would have had access to. He told them that he had several old cell phones in his possession, as well as the computer that she had accessed in the past. Detectives asked Andrew if he would provide them with the devices, and he said he would. But when detectives came to collect them, Andrew suddenly had a change of heart about turning them over to law enforcement, despite advice from his counsel. On February 23rd, Detective Magna contacted Antoine Wiley in order to provide him with additional missing persons flyers of Lori. But while they were there, they also wanted to discuss the recent efforts that the detectives had made on the case and update him with the current information that they had. Detective Magna once again questioned Antoine about Lori and if he had any idea on where she might have gone. During their discussion, there were contradictions between what Antoine told them and what Lori's maternal family had told them. First of all, Antoine claims to have taught Lori how to swim at her age 2, while Brooklyn, Lori's maternal grandmother, said that Lori didn't know how to swim at all. Also, Lori's maternal family claimed that Lori was terrified of the dark, while Antoine said that she was in no way scared of the dark or scared to be outside in the dark. So, why would they lie about such mundane things? Or did anyone really know or care to know things about Lori and what she could do or what she was scared of? Detective Magna also asked Antoine about this Tim Brown guy that Andrew claimed he took to the airport, and Antoine said he had never heard that name before. If Tim had been such a good friend of Andrew's since college and would ask for a ride almost 3 hours away, wouldn't Andrew's own brother have heard of him? On February 26th, detectives called Andrew's girlfriend, Simone Robinson. They asked her questions about Lori, mainly about her use of electronics and what Simone knew about it. She told them that Lori and her sister would use her laptop at times to play Roblox together. However, she said she since had to reset it. She did say that Roblox is the only thing Lori ever used her computer for, and that what she used it for was monitored and that she never used it unsupervised. The conversation then turned to Lori's behavior. Simone told investigators that Lori and her sister had spent the night at her mother's house on a few occasions, and that while Lori was with her mom, she was well behaved and there were never any issues. Isn't it strange that everyone, besides Lori's own mother and father, described Lori as being well behaved, quiet, shy, and a good kid? Where is this out of control brat that Andrew and Miranda have talked about? Or is that just the image they want investigators to have of their daughter? Or did she actually act out around them because of the way they treated her? Simone, as we said in the first episode, was in military training when Lori disappeared. The last time she talked to Andrew was on May 26th. Andrew had called her the day after Miranda had called for the welfare check on Lori and had come over and started shit. Simone said they argued and hung up. Sometime after the 26th, Simone's phone was taken away due to her being in a training environment. She didn't get her phone back until sometime in mid-June, which is when she learned of Lori's disappearance. So did Andrew not try to contact her and tell her about Lori's disappearance when it happened? I just feel it's kind of strange. If my child was missing and my significant other was in the military or away anywhere, I would try to find a way to let them know. Call and say there's an emergency in the family or something. I'm sure there was a way to get a message to Simone if Andrew really wanted to. Simone didn't say anything to detectives about Andrew being upset because Lori was missing. She did say that he seemed to be frustrated because he felt that he was being looked at like a suspect. Sounds like a guilty conscience to me. If the shoe fits, wear that bitch. Simone was asked about Tim Brown and if she had ever heard of him or met him. She said she knew that Andrew knew someone named Tim, but she didn't know his last name and had no knowledge of him going to Jacksonville. Detectives then checked Andrew's phone records for this mysterious Tim Brown, and they found that he only had been in contact with one person named Tim. But his name wasn't Brown, it was Tim Costume. So Detective Magna and Detective Childers contacted Tim Costume. They got in contact with Tim by phone and introduced themselves. They told him that they were the detectives investigating Lori's case and that they had some questions to ask him about Andrew Wiley. They first asked him how he knew Andrew, and he told them that they had gone to school together and had known each other since around 2009. When detectives asked the nature of their relationship, he told them that they were friends. Tim said that he had come to Tallahassee a few times over the last year, but didn't remember the exact dates. He did believe, however, that one of those times had been in May or June. He said that he had always driven himself to Tallahassee and had never flown out of JAX. He stated that the last time he had seen Andrew was in October, but that he had never met Lori. How were they such good friends and he had never even met Andrew's daughter who lived with him? He tried to tell the detectives that he and Andrew didn't talk every day, just occasionally. However, phone records of Andrew's indicated that was a lie. Tim and Andrew spoke or at least texted each other on a daily basis, sometimes for hours at a time. So, why did Tim try to act like they weren't that close? Why would he try to distance himself from Andrew? Is it because he knows something? On February 27th at 3 p.m., a probable cause affidavit for the purpose of serving a search warrant for Andrew's new apartment in Thomasville, Georgia, was provided to the Thomas County Sheriff's Office by Detective Megna. The search warrant was issued and signed by a judge on the same day. Then, on February 28th, detectives with the Tallahassee Police Department and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement showed up to Andrew's job at the Jefferson Correctional Facility in Monticello, Florida. They had another search warrant. This one was for his vehicle. Andrew, being the douchebag that he was, for some reason thought this was hilarious and a big joke, as he said, "Do your thing," and okie dokie. He would soon find out that the joke's on him. Andrew asked to make a call to his brother, Antoine, and the detectives were nice enough to give him the phone out of his vehicle to do so. After making the call, he left work in an unknown coworker's car. His car was towed to Parkway Towing, where it would be processed by forensics. At the same time that they were seizing Andrew's vehicle, they had also started the search of his apartment. By 9:15 a.m., they had collected several items as evidence. This included a Wacom brand drawing pad and a mouse for a computer, a Florida Department of Corrections notebook, another book with written notes, a green 5-star brand notebook, torn papers from a trash can, 3 shopping bags which contained the pieces of a disassembled cell phone, a silver iPhone, 2 more iPhones that had been factory reset, a 16 gigabyte hard drive, a Dell laptop, and a track phone. Based on the fact that devices had been dismantled and reset, detectives concluded that Andrew was trying to conceal data that was stored on the devices. Andrew arrived on scene while they were in the middle of searching his apartment, and he wasn't quite done with his smart-ass remarks. He said, "They done took my baby." And no, he wasn't talking about his missing daughter. This loser was talking about his car. He also said, "This is great. I love it," while laughing, even after it was explained to him that the search warrant was in reference to Lori's case. The audacity of this so-called man is sickening. Other members of law enforcement were searching Andrew's vehicle. Here is what they found: a Ruger SR-45 firearm, a magazine for a Ruger SR-45. There were 9 rounds in the magazine and 1 round in the chamber. A Ziploc bag containing 15 Winchester ammo rounds and 1 9mm ammo round. They also found 3 paper maps of San Luis Park in his vehicle. This is the park that was searched multiple times for Lori. They later discovered that these were passed out during the search. However, Andrew never participated in any of the searches for his daughter. 20 more of Lori's flyers were found under the passenger seat of the car. Why did he not hand them out or participate in any searches if he really cared about what happened to Lori? Or did he already know what happened to her, so he knew there was no point? They also found car cleaning fluid and a car cleaning brush in Andrew's car. The cleaning fluid was almost full, but it stated on the bottle that one of its uses was to clean up blood. They took swabs from the car, namely the passenger seat upholstery, and took a cut from the carpet. They also found a receipt in the vehicle for a computer. The receipt was from a Goodwill store that was from February 27th, just the day before the search warrant was carried out. A check of the Goodwill was conducted, and detectives were told that they don't keep track of who buys computers, and once they receive them, they wipe the hard drives clean. Goodwill provided detectives the video of Andrew purchasing the computer. He did not have a computer with him when he entered the store. After what detectives had discovered in the last 8 months, and even more so in the last couple of weeks of the investigation, they had come to believe that Lori was unfortunately deceased, and it had been done at the hands of her own father, Andrew Wiley. the piece of shit who wanted to laugh and make jokes as they were searching his car and apartment, the man who showed no concern that his daughter was missing, only concerned that he may be a suspect. But now came the hard part. Detectives had to prove that this monster did something to Lori. On February 28th, Andrew's vehicle was examined for biological evidence that would help them prove what they were suspecting. The first thing they noticed in the car was that it didn't have any floor mats. They then sprayed a bioluminescent spray which reacts to the presence of blood. It was sprayed on the interior of the vehicle. There was a reaction to the spray on the front passenger floorboard and the front passenger door, which also included the door jamb and the lower interior of the door. This is when they removed the carpet sample and sent it to the FDLE crime lab for further testing. They also took buccal swabs from Andrew and Miranda to test against the DNA found in the car to see if it was a match for Lori's blood. And it was. Lori's blood was on the passenger floor and door of Andrew's car. After this, Detective Magna and Detective Childers had a conversation with Andrew's supervisor at Jefferson Correctional Institute. They wanted to know how he had been acting at work, especially around the time Lori had disappeared. His supervisor told them that she had been Andrew's boss for about 1 year, but up until recently had been unaware that Andrew even had a daughter. He never spoke about her or her disappearance. She said he mostly kept to himself and rarely took off of work. She said there had not been any changes in his behavior over the last 8 months. So he basically went on with his life like Lori never existed. How could this man go about his life and not even his boss know about his daughter's existence or her disappearance? This is another red flag that shows what a narcissistic person Andrew is. But then, detectives uncovered something that showed what an evil person Andrew really was. On March 4th of 2024, detectives found out about an incident that happened while in a previous relationship. According to the person that Andrew was in the relationship with, they had met in Colorado when he was stationed there in the Army. She said their relationship went from sweet and charismatic to sour and violent. She said that Andrew had a problem with alcohol and was often violent and hostile towards her. One night, he even threw rocks through her window. One day, not long before they broke up for good, they had been arguing about his faults as a parent. During the argument, she tossed a parenting book at Andrew. This caused a fight in which Andrew threw her down multiple times, punched her in the chest, and strangled her. She said that while she was on her back, he held her arm with one hand while strangling her with the other. Although she had trouble breathing, she never lost consciousness. It wasn't until her 10-year-old son came in with a frying pan and told Andrew to get off of her that he finally let go. Andrew had told authorities a different story. He said she threw the book at him and then proceeded to attack him. He said he then grabbed her by the shoulders, trying to calm her down. But when she wouldn't, he then pulled her to the floor and got on top of her. He said that he held onto her shoulders, but that he never grabbed her throat. He said that she continued to try to hit and kick him until her son came in with the frying pan and told him to get off his mother and hit him. Both children saw the fight happen. No one was arrested at that time due to the conflicting stories and injuries that could be consistent with both versions of events. After this, she did not let her children be around Andrew without another adult there to supervise. It wasn't long, though, that this woman got the hell away from Andrew. After they parted ways, she also reported him to the Army. This wasn't the last she heard from Andrew, though. In 2017, Andrew reached out to her through social media and wanted to reconcile. Of course, she said fuck no, but he didn't give up. Andrew would reach out to her again a few years later in 2021. This time, she decided that she wasn't going to date him, but she did want to talk to him. Andrew told her how he was living with his brother Antoine and his wife. He also told her how he had become a correctional officer. They stopped speaking again in October of 2021 due to personal reasons. But then in March of 2022, they started speaking again. The woman remembers him telling her about Lori eventually moving in with him. She said that he was upset that Miranda had left Lori with him and that Lori was, quote unquote, bad and fast. Here we go again with him calling Lori bad when everyone else describes her as being the complete opposite. And what does he mean by fast? This guy is a pervert for even referring to his 12-year-old daughter that way. A few months went by before they spoke again. But when they did, it was the same bullshit. Andrew complained that Lori was still with him, and now he said that he wanted to move to Atlanta. About a month after this, she had not heard anything from Andrew, so she called him. This is when he nonchalantly told her that Lori was missing and had been for a few weeks. He said it like they were talking about the weather. There was no sadness, no sense of urgency to find his daughter, nothing. She asked him if he was searching for her or handing out flyers, if he was doing anything at all to try to find his daughter. And you know what his response was? It was, I know where she at. She on the wrong side of town with her friends. What? If he knew where she was, then why did he call the police and report her missing? Or why hadn't he told the police that he had found out where she was? I can tell you why. It's because he's full of shit. When this person told him he should be taking Lori's disappearance more seriously, Andrew hung up on her. After this, she decided that Andrew had not changed and she quit talking to him for good. But Andrew wasn't done until he had the last word. About a month later, he called and left her a message saying that his girlfriend had found their messages and was pissed. This person told detectives that she didn't even know that Andrew had a girlfriend. After this, she never talked to Andrew again. This person told detectives what her opinion was after talking to Andrew. She said it seemed that Lori reminded him of Miranda, which in turn made him angry. From this person's account of her relationship with Andrew, he was both verbally and physically abusive when it came to the people he was in romantic relationships with. We also know he was emotionally and physically abusive to Lori. Could this asshat possibly have done something to harm his own daughter? The police absolutely thought so. But the biggest question that they wanted answered was where Lori was at. But to find out what happens next, you'll have to wait until next week. For photos from this episode, check out the Victim's Voice webpage and Facebook page. And come back next week for the third and final part of Lori's case. Until then, stay safe and peace out.